Hello, everyone. We're going to get started in about 5 minutes. We're going to get started in just about 2 minutes, by the way. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks, everyone who's here so far. This is our final training course for the week. So today we're going to be wrapping it all up. We've already got a really great agent process built out. And today we're just going to be combining some of the stuff we've learned throughout the week, as well as introducing a few at least one more new feature that you haven't used yet, or that we haven't used throughout the week. So we're going to get straight into it. Today is going to be a day that we hopefully have some time at the end for just some general Q&A. It doesn't even necessarily have to be exactly pertaining to the course. So for example, if there's a particular feature that maybe we didn't hit throughout the week that you'd like a little bit of description on, feel free to send that in. Depending on how much time we have, maybe we can take 5-10 minutes at the end of the training today to go over any other features that any of you might find would be beneficial. So feel free to send those questions in as they come, but we're going to go ahead and get started. So today, first thing we're going to do is go over our new use case. The last one, right, technically we're still the same use case, but we're going to go for a different website. So the last one, we were looking for televisions on Amazon, and now we are going to move to Best Buy, which is another big competitor in the electronics retail company. So we're going to go ahead and get straight to that. As soon as we define our use case, we are going to go over what agent groups are, because even though we're building two different agents, they're going to have very similar fields, and the ability to synchronize features between them and fields between them will be very useful. So we'll go over what agent groups are and how they help us with that. And then we're going to build from scratch an optimized, not just an agent, but an actual process. We're going to build through two agents for Best Buy as well, instead of like we did last time where we built one agent and then we went through and then eventually we optimized it into two agents. We're going to build it as two agents right from the get-go to have a totally optimized process, and we're even going to flow that into our sequence. So we'll go ahead and get started. So like I said, on the very first day, before ever getting into the agent builder, if you remember, right, that we always want to analyze our website first by going through it manually, trying to get a feel for how we would scrape the website or navigate through the website as a standard user, as opposed to just digging it right into the agent builder, because we can get in a little bit of trouble if we do it that way. So we're going to go ahead and go to bestbuy.com televisions. All right, so let's take a look at the site. We want to scope it out, see what it looks like, see what fields we want. Now, as we're doing this, we're going to remember that we're probably going to want very similar fields to the Amazon Part 2 agent. So product name, reviews, average rating, price, description, brand name, item weight, product dimensions, product URL, and 5 images, and then also the website right here. So let's go look here and see what we can start to find. So first thing we see, right, is our list of televisions. Immediately we do see one of these sponsored options. So that's definitely something we'll want to consider, that we will want to try to remove. We'll try to remove these sponsored items if we can. We'll see that we can get the product name, the average rating right here, the total number of reviews. Some of them say see price in cart, similar to how Amazon had click to see price. But some of them do have price, so we'll want to capture the price if we can get it there. So cool, we can get quite a few pieces of information on this page. Then down at the bottom, we're going to want to paginate once. So let's keep that in mind. Okay, cool. So we've kind of know what we want to do on this page. We know our list is going to want to be built off this whole row instead of just the product title, like we discussed when we went over XPaths. So let's click into one of these products and make sure what fields we'll be able to capture from this page. So similar to Amazon, there's several images. This one does have 5. So we'll do the same thing where if there's 5 images, we'll capture 5. If there's fewer, we'll just capture as many as there are and leave the additional fields blank. So we'll see, here's a description, just like what we wanted to get before. So we're getting almost everything that this agent's getting. We found the images. We can put in a custom value to get the to put Best Buy instead of Amazon. We'll get the product URL, the images, name, reviews, rating, price, description. The only 3 that we haven't found yet are brand name, item weight, and product dimensions. So let's go ahead and scroll down and see if we can find that anywhere. Nothing in there really. But when we get to specifications, we see Best Buy, and Best Buy's got some of the easiest structure to work with, which is why it's going to be a great example for today. We can see that it's got a whole lot of information, actually, even more than Amazon had, and very structured. Screen size, display type. As we're scrolling down, they've got dimension here, but it's not a single dimension like we captured in the Amazon agent. Can't see item weight. Down to the bottom, they do have brand, which is probably the same as brand name. So we'll say that we definitely do want to try to capture the brand. So that sounds pretty good. So now that we've looked through the page, right, we can feel pretty confident that we'll be able to get some of this data. It's pretty well structured, right? So the next thing that we would normally want to do, right, is jump straight into the agent builder and start building it. And usually I would say that that is fine. But first, we want to go look at agent groups, because that's going to help us, because one of the frustrating parts about data is we don't want to build another agent with slightly, maybe we confuse it while we're building and we call it product title instead of product name. And then when we try to compare the fields in our data analysis step of the process, we start to realize that our fields don't line up quite right between agents. So we want to build a template to work off of. And that's why we are going to use agent groups today. So many of our customers will often confuse agent groups and treat them as if they are folders. So you want to be careful about that. Agent groups are not folders. They're not just grouping similar agents together. That's what folders are for. Agent groups specifically are a way to combine, to synchronize fields. Well, more specifically, synchronize settings across agents and create a template of fields for agents to use. So to make sense of that, we're going to create our first agent group, and we are going to call it webinar-televisions and create. So now we don't have any agents assigned to this agent group yet, so we won't be able to do too much for it. But let's go ahead and assign the part 2 agent. Now we could assign both of them, but remember, we're trying to use these to synchronize template fields. So we don't want part 1 in here probably, because part 1 won't have all of the same fields as part 2. So we're going to assign agents, and we will assign webinar part 2. And we're going to see that it will probably alert us that our harvesting settings are not in sync with the agent groups. Yeah, so it says the agents are out of sync with the agent group harvesting settings. So we're not going to synchronize right now. What we're going to do instead, we're going to come up to this menu. You see how it's got several options here. We can go to harvesting settings, and it allows us to set the settings for this particular agent group, and then we could synchronize it across all the rest of the agents in the group. So for now, we know that we're going to want premium harvesting if it's Amazon. For behavior, we will want store item history. Now remember, there is another checkbox down here that talks about file packages. It won't show up yet because we haven't assigned any fields to our template, so right now it doesn't think we have any files in the agent group. So we won't change that yet, but we'll set most of these settings up and click save so that we can be ready to build a template off of it. And then once we add the fields, we'll go back and enable that other setting, and we'll synchronize this agent so that it lines up with the harvesting settings for the agent group. So there's obviously several options here. We can look at the data. Once you start adding agent groups, you'll be able to see data. You'll notice right away, when you look at the data, we don't see any fields here. Once again, because it's an agent group, it is showing us agent group views, which would require that we set up template fields, which once again, we haven't done yet. So that's why we're going to go to fields first. So currently we have all these fields. In the description, it tells us if there's multiple agents in the group, it will tell us which agents, it will tell us how many agents have that field that's associated with, right? And if it only has one agent that's associated with it, we'll give you the name. So obviously we only have one agent in our agent group, so it's only going to show us the name of that one. So what we want to do is make sure that all of the fields that we know will be consistent, meaning they'll be in each of our agents, we want to make those template fields. So the first one we want to do that with is product URL. So we're going to click on it and go to include in template and choose save. Sometimes it takes a moment. Yeah, sometimes you do have to wait for some collection maintenance. So you generally want to create the agent group beforehand and then go in and build the agent, but depending on how much activity is going on in your account, it can take a little while to update it. So while that is running, we're going to come down to the agent builder and we're going to click use template, webinar televisions, and we'll use that template. So now when we start a new, well, first we're going to go to bestbuy.com. So let's go to, grab our URL, come over and load that page. Looks like we've got some request blocking on already. We'll bump that down to level 1. We were on level 2, so we'll click save on level 1. That's why it's showing up in a weird format. So we'll start a new agent from this page. And I'm going to go ahead and just test it to reload it with the correct visuals. And in the meantime, let's come back over here. Let's refresh our fields. Here, we'll just refresh the page, and we'll see it create a group called template fields, and it will separate it from the agent fields for the agent group. So you'll see now that we made product URL a template field. So if we go to data, we would then see that it shows up in the agent or the agent group data view. And in the agent group, we'll see that our template has the product URL field, meaning it's telling us that in this new agent, we want to capture that field. So like I said, sometimes it can take a minute, so we're going to just add them a little bit as we go. I'm going to include in template. You can also indicate that it's a required field, meaning not only is it in the template, but it absolutely has to be found. So we'll let that collection maintenance occur. And in the meantime, we will start building our agent. So as you do add template fields, if you're working on it live, you will need to reselect the template in order to get that second field to show up. So we'll just switch back and forth between the agent group and applying the template fields to these fields. And pretty soon we'll have a pretty solid agent. Now remember, this is going to be the part 1 agent for Best Buy. So when we're done here, we probably won't be able to, we probably won't want it to be a template, but it'll help us at the beginning to get the fields that we want. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing that we want to do, let's add our custom value. That was website. And we'll call it Best Buy Reaction. Now generally you want to have that template field in there already, which is down here, because it'll make sure that you keep the exact same format and everything, which makes me wonder, we're going to go ahead and jump straight down to product name because that's going to be the first one that we capture. So as that's performing collection maintenance, let's re-upload our template. All right, so we're going to want to get product name. So here's the way that it works with templates. So we don't want the sponsored one. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to capture the whole row, right? So click there, capture list, and then click another product a little bit further down, just like that. And then it's going to, instead of popping up with that box to name it, it's going to give us the option to choose from our template fields or to create a new field. And we are going to go ahead and choose product name for now. And it's going to say that it sees a few other things in there, but we're not going to specify. We'll just capture product name. So now it'll show up with a check mark saying that we've met the requirement to have that field inside of our agent. So we'll change the name of the list to just be product list. And just like I said, right, we're not going to waste any time trying to build a basic agent. We're just going to optimize it as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and add another one of these. We'll add price. And then we'll go over to televisions and go write a custom XPath to capture each of these rows. Alrighty, so first thing, right when I inspected, it took me straight here. So I inspected like the box, and it took me to one of these, and we'll see that all of these items here are all called LI class SKU item. They have a class of SKU item as you look through all the products. Let's scroll up to the top. And we'll see that there's a different one, right? So this is the SKU item. And you look at the sponsored one and you can see how much is going on there. This is all that has to happen when you do a sponsored. So it still has SKU items. So if we write an XPath, so I'm going to press Control F, capture that class SKU item, look for a LI tag, that has class equal to SKU, and oops, we forgot our // So it finds 24 of them, but among those 24 is the sponsored one. But it looks like that's all that it finds. It finds ones that we want, but it also additionally finds sponsored ones. So we do want to specify that we want to try to get rid of the sponsored item. So obviously there's quite a bit of difference between the sponsored ones and the rest of them, namely that it has all of these other details, data click beacon. So we're going to expand our XPath to say, and not contains within that at data click dash beacon attribute. We're going to specify that we want it to not have, we'll use something that looks common like that word cat, cat at the beginning. So we'll put cat right there. So that eliminates the sponsored one. Now we do want to be careful that this will match all sponsored items, but it looks like a pretty common URL to start it. So I imagine that's how they start their sponsored items. It just looks like a very clean, it's not a bunch of random letters or anything and numbers. So we'll stick with that. So we now have our list item. I'm going to come back over to the agent group. Let's go add another template field. And we'll go back into the agent builder and replace the whole XPath with our custom XPath, which is much more readable. Item that does not contain a cat, which we know means sponsor. Alrighty, so now we'll go to product name. Go back to Best Buy and we'll go inspect one of these product names. And we'll see Best Buy has a really awesome SKU header option. So let's copy that and say from there we want to look for h4 at class equals SKU header. We see that it still finds 23 items, which is exactly what we'd expect. So we can feel pretty confident that that's finding the product name. So we will copy that, go to product name, leave our two dots in there, or our dot in there to make it relative to the list item. And our capture text preview is looking pretty good so far. All right, let's keep going. Let's see if we can add another field now. We'll add website. Okay, so let's go over to start gathering another field. Let's start with average rating. So first we'll just click here, right? So we'll say capture text. And we want to capture average rating. It's not really getting anything right now. Let's go build a custom XPath. Inspect. And we'll see here that class equals filled. That doesn't really give us a good description. Unfilled. See stars. That's pretty good. But then we'll come up here and there's a really good one that is see ratings or ratings reviews. That's a pretty clear class name. So let's try from there. Let's go A and we will look for a class equal to ratings reviews, and it finds 23 of them. Now, you notice right away that it's capturing both the star rating and the total reviews, but that's okay because we know how to use the refine capture text tool. So we'll go to average rating and modify the XPath to this new one that we created. We do want it to be relative, so let's put a period in there. We'll go ahead and refine the captured text. So we can see that it says rating 4.6 out of 5 stars. We want to replace the out of with just a slash like we did on the last agent. Out space out space of space with just a slash. And then in our capture definitions we can specify that we're going to look for the word rating with a semicolon, or sorry, a colon afterwards. And then that'll capture the rating for us up until we see the words stars with, and then from there we want to capture our total ratings until we see the word reviews. So we see we've got rating, and then it captures average rating between the words rating, colon, and stars, so right in there, and then stars with, and reviews captures total ratings between there, giving us our two values that we're looking for. So we get 2 for 1 right here. Let's go ahead and reload our template so that we can get all the new fields that we've added. There we go. Getting quite a few now. So Let's pop open our refine capture text. I did realize we didn't name the field. This is why you want a template, right? We didn't name it total ratings. We want it to be total reviews, but I called it total ratings. So we'll go back into the refine capture text tool, and we'll change total ratings to total reviews. Oops. And save that. Now it shows up as checked. Okay, so next we're going to want to probably get the product URL, so we'll get that in a minute. Let's go back and add another field. So remember, we do think we can find brand name and description in the images. We aren't sure if we'll be able to find item weight and product dimensions, so we'll make sure that we only add the ones that we feel confident will be need to be in the template because they'll be included in all of our agents. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's get the product URL really quick. So if we remember, let's go inspect the product name in here again. We see that we captured that class SKU header for the H4 tag, but the A tag is what we actually want. So we can come in here, we can go copy the product name capture action, and we'll paste it down here, and we'll change it to product URL. And instead of getting the H4, we'll tell it to get the A tag. Now it is important to know, we're going to open up the refine capture text tool and switch it to HTML, and we'll now be able to find that href in there that's in the A tag, which represents the URL that we're looking at. Href equals quotes, quotes, and it'll gather what's in between that. But it is important to note that we could have left, and another cool feature about refine capture text, you actually can modify XPaths here. So we're going to remove that /A. We actually could just hone in on the H4 tag, because to be honest, the A tag is nested within it, and it would still find it. I just prefer to be a little bit more scoped in just to make sure that we're getting right down to the element that we want. So instead of getting H4 included, it will just get the A tag. That's preference though, so there's a couple ways you could do it, but I like scoping in as far as we can. Let's go add another one. Okay, so let's move on. Let's get our price now. So a lot of these say see price and cart, so we'll probably have to write 2XPath, but let's go ahead and just capture a price for now, and we'll call it, provide a field name, and we'll choose price. So obviously it's not finding it for all of them. Let's go ahead and inspect the price and see what we can find. So we see a pretty good class right here that says price view hero price, price view customer price. That sounds pretty good. So let's copy that and create a div, or look for a div in the XPath that holds that class value. Finds 18. Let's make sure that it's only finding ones that we want. Yeah, so it's not finding any of these like was prices. It's only finding, you'll notice, the actual prices, the customer prices, as the class name implies. So we'll copy that over, and that will find a lot of them, but it won't find all of them because some of them, as we mentioned, say see price and cart. So we'll inspect that. And here we see a few options. It says price view, tap to view price. So that sounds pretty good. Our div right here, price view, tap to view price. That sounds pretty consistent with what we're seeing, which is, see price and cart, which implies that you click or tap on it. Let's go ahead and take that class and see what happens if we put that there. And it finds 5. So if you remember, there's 24 items on the page. One of them sponsored, so there's only 23 that we want. The regular price capture found 18, and this one finds 5, which would put us at 23. So we can feel pretty confident that that will get the ones that we want. So we'll new line and put an alternate XPath. Take a look at capture text preview, and we'll see right away that we are getting fields for everything, but it's a little unclean, so we'll need to refine it. So let's go in, and you'll see that it seems whenever there's a price hidden somewhere in the HTML, it also says your price for this item is, and gives the price again. So we'll go refine it. And similar to what we did in the Amazon agent, instead of doing between two $signs, we'll say look for $, and then look for the word your. And whatever's between there is what we want. Now remember that for the ones that we need a C price in cart, this won't find anything. So we do need an alternate capture that says if you can't find a $sign and the word your, just capture whatever is there. So we'll save that, and we see that we get pretty clean data now in the price field. Okay, so we are making good time. Let's go ahead and analyze this agent for a minute, right? So we've captured everything that we can so far on this page. While we're discussing that, I'm going to go add one more field to our template. And now we're at the point where if we were doing it in one agent, we'd add a load page to load that product URL to go get the rest of them. But remember that we're going to build it optimized to begin with, so we're just going to leave it as one agent. So first thing I'm going to do is save it just to make sure, if anything crashes or anything, we get our work saved. As usual, it will ask us to review the request blocking expressions that level 1 has provided. So we're going to go ahead and confirm those. Save the agent, and we'll call it webinar-best by part 1. Now, before we go run the agent, we need to remember that we do want it to, we definitely do want it to use request blocking. And as a matter of fact, like I said, we could leave it in the template, but in reality, we want to reserve the template for the part 2 agents. So I'm going to remove the template at this point, and we'll go add it to part 2 when we get there. So let's go apply some request blocking. So we'll go to navigation requests. We have auto block level 1 on. It seems to be working correctly. So let's go to File, Settings, Level 2, and Apply Level 2, and test the agent again to see how it works. Oh, I did just realize we also need to add in a page list. We did forget about that. To paginate once. Look how fast that runs though when we get that request blocking on though. So level 2 is definitely working because it's getting our data and it's getting it really, really fast. So let's go to level 1 again though so that we can create our page list action. So I'll test that. And in the meantime, let's go build an XPath for the page list. So let's scroll to the bottom here. And we'll click on that little right arrow icon. Oops, we're not in the agent builder. We want to right click inspect it. All right, so we will go inspect that icon. And it takes us right here. And we see a pretty solid one actually, which is F icon caret right, which is exactly what it is. It's an icon with a caret to the right. So let's now trans dash button. I'm not sure what that might mean. Probably transition button, but it might not be quite as accurate. Probably okay though. So let's copy the whole thing and let's look for an A tag that contains that value. And it only finds one. So that's perfect. There's a good XPath. But one thing I noticed right away is that there's a space at the end of the class. Now in reality, there's not necessarily a good reason why we'd want a space there. In reality, it could potentially mean that somebody made a mistake during the creation of the page. So it could be dangerous to do an exact match in case they down the road come and remove that space. So just to be really safe, let's make it a contains method. So we'll say it has to contain these values. And that way we can get rid of the space in case they remove it later. And we could even see potentially if we remove everything, we just have F icon dash caret right, which is a little bit more specific. And it seems to be working great. So we'll copy that over and go back to, well, let's go add one more field again. And then we'll go back to our agent builder and go add a page list. So let's try testing it one more time to see if we can get all the page to load up correctly this time. Well, some of the other request blocking expressions we made may be blocking it even more aggressively than we want. So we're going to clear all there and save and start over. There we go. So this agent will still run pretty fast because it's pretty simple, but remember, when we applied even just from level 1 to level 2, it only took about a second or two for the whole agent to run, but now we have to wait for all these other requests to come through, up to 140 already. If you sort by duration, you see all these ones that we're pending on, waiting for them to finish. So that's what's causing all the delay. All right, so let's go add our page list. So even though we have our own XPath, we do kind of want to create the action off the actual right arrow icon, right caret icon, just because it will recognize it as a page list. So, oops, went a little bit too far. There we go. Oops, no, I went too far up. There we go. So we'll come. All right, so it looks like things are still loading and it's kind of moving the page around a little bit. So let's go click that right arrow icon now and we'll click page list. It's going to confirm that it's looking for the word next, which is probably nested in the HTML. We'll create that page list, but then we're going to come here and modify it. You'll notice right away that page lists by default use associated text. So what we'll usually do with a capture, right, when you right click it and you go to location, associate nearby text. But instead, we're going to, and the reason it does that is because it says it looks for that word next, even though that might not be the actual button, and then it writes an XPath relative to that one to go see if it can find the actual button. In this case, the words that say next are the actual button or link to press. So the XPath, the secondary XPath is just a period indicating just click wherever you are right now. But we're going to override all that and use this XPath here. All right, so we've got a pretty solid agent now. Let's go back and put level 2 request blocking on again. So remember, we had about, wow, look at that, up to about 646 requests actually that were coming through. So we're going to test the agent now and see when we put level 2 request blocking, which once again blocks all third-party requests from coming through. And we'll see how many we get now. So we did forget to put a limit on our page list. So I'm going to stop it. Otherwise, it'll just keep going until the end. So we've got our navigation request down. We're going to get rid of these blocked ones. We brought it down to 3 of these. And to be honest, you'll see this was page 1, this is page 2, and this is page 3. So really, that's just from paginating. So we actually, getting rid of third-party requests, narrowed it down to a single request per load, which is amazing. So instead of waiting a long time, 15, 20 seconds for the page to load, we have to wait for one request, which the first one was 5 seconds, the second one was 4.7 seconds. Which means we can come over here and lower, after loading this page, down to 15 again, or sorry, down to 5 like we did in Amazon. We can also come in here and go to properties, and after performing, list processing, we want to limit it to just paginating once. And we're also going to remove wait for Ajax on the page list since we know that it happens almost immediately. So let's save that now and test out the agent. So remember, this is only using level 2 request blocking. So I've got 24, 48 really fast. It looked like the sponsored one didn't load that time, potentially because we blocked ads maybe. So check that out. We now have 48 items. The entire test took 15 seconds to get 48 items across 2 pages. Our navigation requests were narrowed down to 2 requests, one to load the page once, and then once to paginate. So we really can't, we could theoretically mess around and try to go to level 3 and level 4, but in reality, we've already narrowed it down. Now, so we really wouldn't need to take it any further than level 2. Now we do want to confirm each of these, and let's test it just one more time, but I'm thinking that we're pretty good to save the agent, run it, and get started on part 2. In the meantime, I'm going to add another field to our template. Everything's running smoothly. Got 47 this time, which means a sponsored one popped up. That's okay. So we've got a really great agent now. We've gotten rid of request blocking as much as we can. We've eliminated wait time. So we've got a really great agent now. We wrote our own custom XPath. So we're going to go ahead and save this one to the account. Close that. and we'll wait for collection maintenance to begin. But we know that we now want to create a second agent. So let's go ahead and go File, New. And this one we can just start from this main page because once again, we're just going to be loading the product URLs. So we don't necessarily need to start from anywhere other than this page. Now we do want to take it to level 1 so that we don't block all the visuals. Let's go ahead and go look at our agents list really quick. Then we'll come back and add image 5. So we now have Best Buy Part 1. So we'll go in here. It's not part of the template because we removed that, which is what we want. And we're going to go ahead and make sure our harvesting settings are correct. Stop. Store item history, which is generally a good idea. And because we're going to be using Part 2 in an agent group using premium harvesting, we can make the option to use standard or premium. I did mention on the first day, if you don't have to use premium harvesting, generally don't, because it'll use more credits. So we're going to have Part 1 use standard harvesting, and Part 2 we might end up using premium just for the sake of being able to have the settings synchronized across all of our agents. So we'll save that, and let's go ahead and kick this agent off. That way it'll gather some data for our second agent to use. And while that's running, let's go ahead and go back to our agent group fields, and we'll go add the last field, which is image 5. We'll say to include that in the template. And we'll come to the agent builder and we'll just choose add action input list, collection. And we want to use Best Buy Part 1. Choose OK. And remember that we need that first agent and the agent builder to gather data. So it's running in the background right now. In a few minutes, it will load the data that it's captured into this item right here. But because there's nothing in most recent completed run yet, it doesn't have it. So we got to wait about a minute for that to go through. But in the meantime, we can start building the rest of the agent. So we know that we want it to use a template. Webinar televisions, use template. And we'll see immediately that we have all of the fields that we know that this agent should have. That won't make it so that we can't find more if we want, but we'll be able to make sure that we at least have the ones that are going to be required. All right, so we've got all of our template fields now. Remember, now we can change the harvesting settings because we've added file type fields to the template. We now have this option that we like, which is to not have it manually create image and file packages. That way we can do it manually. So we'll save that. All right, and let's go take a look at our Best Buy agent now. Part 1. Oops, it looked like it did hit a little error. Let's go take a look at what the error was. Timeout. Timeout occurred. So it might be that it ran a little too fast. Let's go ahead and resume it and see what happens. I don't believe we didn't set it to postpone on error, so that is one thing that we want to consider. That sometimes the website really just might fail to serve up the data in time, especially since we're trying to be really fast and we've removed any, on that first page we removed this all the way down to 5. We only waited 5 seconds. So let's see how it fares this time. 23 items. So let that run for another moment. In the meantime, let's go into the agent builder and let's build our load new page action, which is going to pass in a product URL. And that will load us to a new page. Now, right now, it's not really going to have anything there because we don't have anything in our data list yet, but it'll get us to a good start. And we also know that our data list, we want to bring all the fields through from the first agent. So we're going to go to additional settings, and then I just clicked that select button so that we want, because we want to bring in website, and I'm just holding control right now, product name, average rating, total reviews. You can also just hold shift and click all the way to the bottom because we want to bring all these fields in except for item ID because the Part 2 agent will provide its own item ID. So we can't have duplicate field. So we'll OK there, save the agent. And there we go. Now our capture text preview pulls through each of those results. Let's go take a look at part 1. We're still hitting an error, so we're going to want to debug that. So in the meantime, let's save this agent. We'll come back to it. Webinar Best Buy part 2. And we see that it is getting some data. It's got these first 23 items, but it's not getting any more. So I'm wondering if perhaps it's getting that first page, but when it tries to paginate, maybe it's not going in time. So it says a web page cannot be downloaded, and it says that it's on page 1. So it could be that maybe we do need to leave the wait for Ajax for that page list action. So let's go ahead and try that and see how that works. Because it seems like it's loading page 1 correctly, it's just not loading to page 2 correctly after that. All right, so let's go to the page list properties. And we will say wait for Ajax and save. And then we'll save the agent. All right, so let's close. Well, we'll just go back to here, and we will resume the agent, and we'll hope that this time it correctly gets page 2. So I'll let that run for a minute. We have quite a few more people that have joined on since we started, so I just want to iterate a reminder that we might have a little bit of time coming up here at the end, so if you have some questions, feel free to send them in. We're going to be finishing up pretty quickly, although we are getting close to the end. So send in any questions that you do have, and we'll definitely try to either address them right at the end or on an individual basis by reaching out to you after the webinar. Let's take a look at how this one is. There we go. So now we got 47 items. Looks like it went through correctly. So it came down to we do need to wait for Ajax on the page list on this one. All right, so let's go ahead and open up part 2 again, because we should be getting ready to get data from this first one now, since it's gathering the data correctly. All right, it's refreshing the data. There we go. Looks like it got a correct URL now, so we're in good shape. And we've got all of our template fields over here. You'll notice all the ones that we pulled through from that first agent are already marked off as checked because we already found them. So let's go find the rest of them now. First thing we wanted to get right was this description. So we'll first go capture that text, and we'll choose description. And as always, we are going to go write our own XPaths. So we'll load up one of these products. And we'll go inspect that description. And we see that it's got a really great identifier or ID attribute, which says ID-long description. It's hard to be more detailed than that. So let's go ahead and search for that div. Oops. With that particular ID. And there we go. That gets our description. So we'll copy that and go to the agent builder. Replace everything that was there with what we want. All right, so now we're getting the description. Now we want to go get that brand name too. So let's scroll down here. Now here we are using a drop down to open this data. But in reality, it's all in the HTML already. So we don't necessarily need to add a click item to open that. We can just try to capture the brand name. So we're going to come down here and inspect brand name. So it gives row title, and then above that is title container. Then there's an li element that we want. So maybe what we want to do is look for within a specs, something that says specs table that contains the word brand. So let's try that. Let's say look for a div that contains within the class attribute specs table. So there's 14 of those, but specifically, we also want it to contain the word brand within the inner text. So we'll say and contains within the inner text the word brand. And that narrows it down to 1. But it does give us that whole specs table. So maybe instead of a specs table, we specifically want the li tag that contains it. So here's what we'll do. Instead of putting this here, we'll get rid of that. We'll say start at the div that says specs table, and then in there we want to get an li tag. So we'll say specifically we want an li tag, descendant node, that contains that word brand. And there we go. That narrows it down to 1 li tag. It does give us the whole thing, so we could write some more XPath to specifically go get the row value, or we can refine it whichever way we want. Let's go ahead and let's get the row value. So that sounds pretty. So there's a row value and a row title. So let's copy this, and we'll say specifically go look for a div that contains within the class attribute the words row dash value, and we get our value just like that. So we'll copy that and come over and capture. We can click on anything now just to create a capture text action, searching for brand name, but we'll replace all the XPath to do what we want, and there we go. It's finding the brand name really well. Now, we did mention that it might be good to capture a few of these other things as well, even though it's not in the template, but for example, display type and screen size, those are both really valuable pieces of information. So now that we wrote an XPath that searches for the word brand and then finds a value based on it, we may be able to just copy each of these. So let's copy brand name, paste it, and we'll change it to something like display size. Save that. And then instead of looking for the word brand and then finding the row value associated with it, let's look for the words display size and see if that works. So it doesn't quite work. Let's go figure out why. Let's take everything up until here. Let's see if this part, if we remove this part, still doesn't quite find anything. So let's go take a look in the dev tools here. It's not finding display size. There we go, because it's actually display type. So that's probably why. So let's change that to display type. There we go. Now it's finding what we want. So we'll call this display type. And just for fun, let's do one more. Copy, paste, and we'll go find screen size now. So we'll change this to screen size. Just another one of those great benefits of using XPath. If you know what you're looking for, it's a lot easier to really quickly override it. There we go. We're getting our display type and screen size. Okay, so the only thing that's left now is to get our images. So let's go do that real quick. In Amazon, we had to click somewhere else. On Best Buy, it immediately recognizes it's an image. So we're going to choose download image, image 1. And let's go write an XPath to find each of those images. So go inspect the image. Brings us to an image down there. But they're sibling nodes at the LI level. So you want to find where they're sibling nodes because that's where we want to start our XPath. So it looks like all of these ones that say thumbnail wrapper, carousel item, visible are the ones we want. But we see one of them says selected. So we can't do an exact match, but we can do up until visible. So we'll tell it to look for an li tag that contains within the class attribute those words. And it finds 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And to specify which one we want, we just add on a position indicator. So we can get the first one, or the second one, or the third one, or the fourth one. And specifically, we don't want the li, we want the image nested within it. So we'll copy this whole XPath and come over to image 1, modify the XPath from the hard to understand to something that looks for a thumbnail, image. And there we go. Now we're finding our image. We won't show it in the capture text preview because it's a downloaded file, but we can copy our image. And I'm just using Control-C, Control-V now, which are the hotkeys for copying. So we're just copying to make 5 of them. And we will go ahead and change all the names. Take a look at on the right in the template field, you'll see that as I'm changing the names, it's marking them off on the right because it realizes that we are finding those fields now. All right, so now we've got 5 images. We want to make sure that we change this number so that it finds the ones that we are actually interested in, as opposed to just finding image 1 for all of them. There we go. All right, so now we've got all of our images in place. We're getting all of our template fields. We've even added 2 new agent fields, which means they're not in the agent group template, but they are in the agent fields. Now let's go ahead and test it with level 2 request blocking to optimize it. So we'll start this agent. So it's going to load each of the 48 URLs that we got one by one and make sure that it can load correctly. And it looks like it's working. Doesn't quite look like it got the images though. So we may want to take a second look at that. Unfortunately, we are running a little short on time. Let's take a look and see if there's something a little wrong with our XPath. Doesn't quite look like there's anything wrong. So that's something that if we did have a little more time, we'd probably want to take a deeper look at. Let's see what happens. Let's put it to level 1 and see if it finds anything. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, level 1, so let's test it one more time. All right, so I think we had a little lag for a moment there. So it's definitely taking a lot longer. It's still not getting the images, so there might be something else that we have to do to try to capture those images. So let's move it back to level 2, and just because of time, so we'll save the agent with level 2 enabled. Let's test it one more time just to make sure everything looks good. We're going to save the agent, and if we did have more time, we'd go in and we'd try to diagnose a little bit more why those images aren't being found, because it definitely should be finding them with the XPath that we wrote. I mean, it could be that it's just not quite showing up in the testing results, but it will still download. But because we want to go finish up our process first, let's focus on that, and then if we have any time at the end, we'll swing back over here. So we want to save our part 2 agent. It's using our template with a few extra fields at the bottom. All right, so it's going to perform a little bit of maintenance. So in the meantime, what we're going to do is go to our sequence now. Now that we've built another process, we want to add it to our webinar sequence. So let's add a run agent step for Best Buy Part 1. We'll select that. There's no lists. We do want to apply error handling though, maybe up to 5 times. No parameters are required. So we'll save that agent. Save that run agent step, I mean. And then let's go add part 2 as well. And because we added fields and removed some, it's going through collection maintenance right now, which is why it shows up as refreshing. Just like Amazon, we're going to split it into 5 jobs. We're going to set it up to error handle up to 5 times, to resume up to 5 times, and we'll save our agent. Now, our sequence is pretty good now, but the problem is the way it runs right now is it's going to run part 1, and then when part 1 finishes, it'll run Amazon part 2, and then when Amazon part 2 finishes, it will run Best Buy part 1, and then Best Buy part 2. In reality, we can have the part 1s run at the same time, and then once both of those finish, kick off part 2. So we're going to select both of those more, and we'll say run the 2 steps concurrently. So now it's going to run part 1s first, and then we'll also combine the part 2 steps. And there we go. So now we've got both of the part 1s running at the same time, and then the part 2 agents will come in and run when the first one's finished, and they'll run at the same time with 5 jobs each. So we're really going to be able to maximize, because this account only allows 10 concurrent jobs, we're going to really be able to maximize what we're running at. And just make sure, oops, not a new agent group, just to make sure all of our settings are good, since we don't want to have to go through and look at all our agents to make sure the settings are okay, we will just synchronize the agent group settings that we set for the agent group. All right, so we're going to go kick off our sequence now. Once again, unfortunately, we just don't have enough time to debug why the images aren't being captured, but I'm certain that there is a solution. We just need to clean it up a little bit. We're going to go ahead and run our sequence now. And with that, we're just about out of time, so I'm hoping it will at least get through the part 1s and then move on to part 2 to start running that off, and you'll be able to see how that works in parallel. But just to recap, so we're approaching the end of our training, and the main things that I want to focus on as we finish up, right? This is a 5-course training. This isn't something we've done before at Mozenda. And the reason that we set it up this way as opposed to, just a one-off training is because we really feel that every facet of the training that we went through this week is important and requires the amount of time and more that we put into it. So to recap what we covered this week and to emphasize what our recommendations are as you move forward building your agents. Number 1, as you start building your agents, do not start in the agent builder. Start in a web browser. Make sure you understand the processes that your agents are going to go through, so that you know how to best automate that, as opposed to trying to kind of figure out as you go, like we would do if we just went straight to the agent builder. Then I would recommend, as you start building your agent, optimize it as you go. So first of all, leave level 1 request blocking on at all times, unless for some reason you found a site that some reason it breaks it, which is extremely rare. Leave level 1 on, and then as you write your capture actions, try to use XPath that you write custom each time. Then as you build that first agent, right, if you see anywhere that you're going to be loading URLs, it's a good sign that you want to split it into 2 agents. Have the first one just capture URLs, build a sequence that will split the second agent into multiple jobs to run a lot more quickly. And you'll be able to really see that your agent processes are just going to be so much more efficient. Like I said, especially with XPath, for example, it's been several months since I've had to go back into my account and fix an agent because of a location issue. And that's because all my agents are written with custom XPath. And I can guarantee you'll see the same thing as you do it. It's definitely takes some time to learn, but I can guarantee that it will be worth it. Additionally, same thing with splitting your agents. It might take a little bit more work to split it, but it saves you so much time debugging because it's split into more specific agent purposes, and it runs a lot cleaner. You can make it run faster. So hopefully throughout the week you've been able to see a lot of things that help you, that'll be able to improve the processes that you currently have going on, as well as help you set up new processes moving forward. Right before we finish, I just want to mention it did finish the part 1 agents, and we can go look at each of the part 2 agents, and we will see that it's kicked off 5 jobs. Now they're not all running quite yet, it looks like. There we go. They're still queued and kicking off, but if we go look at part 2 as well, be able to see that it's running a similar setup with 5 jobs, but it's got more total items from part 1, so it'll be splitting it across, or it'll have more indexes per job. But with that, once that pops open, just to show you that, there we've got our 5 jobs running here. Let's go look at our harvesting results. There we go. Still not capturing those images. So unfortunately, that's the one thing that if we had more time, we'd go in and keep fixing that. But we were able to build. We spent about a half hour just on this one process. We spent about a half hour reviewing those agent groups. So you can see that if you start applying the optimization tactics right away, and one thing I forgot to mention in my summary, also after you build the agent and it's working, optimize request blocking, put more advanced to level 2, then 3, then 4, as far as you can get with it to still work. But you'll see that we can build a whole process out in under an hour, in about a half hour actually, once we get a lot of practice in on some of these optimization tactics. So thanks everyone for being with us this week, for participating in the training. One more reminder, shoot us an email if you would like access to the videos of these recordings through the week, because those will be available sometime next week. So thanks everybody for joining with us. We're going to call it for today, and we hope to see you in the future as we go into deeper dives about more specific topics. And so keep an eye out on our calendar once again, which is on mozenda.com/help, and we'll be adding more trainings there as we develop the programs for them. Okay, well, we'll look forward to seeing you down the road, and take care.